Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the reigning world champion, the Terran in the red. It's Clem, facing off against the best Protoss player in the world. We have MaxPax, a best of 5 Terran versus Protoss grand finals. So if you like good games for the fans, I only have one more thing to ask of you. It's to beg you to smash that like button and maybe even subscribe to help me hard counter the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we at? Just one more. 1,537 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways. I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As Clem off to his aggressive start, building just Reaper Hellion off 2 gas, a later expansion. But he's going to have an almost TVTS setup early on. And the first Adept might be walking into something it's not quite cut out for. As 2 Reapers and a Hellion are more than enough. He cancels the Shade immediately, but it's already too late. The Hellion dodges back. Reaper off to the corner. And the full surround will triangulate and take down that first Adept. The second one thinks a little better of it and realizes, you know, this is probably a bad idea. Poking forward. Actually, kind of surprising MaxPax is going out at all, but spots exactly the same units. Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal, and the Adept barely makes it out. Gotta be careful not to stub its toe on the way back into the base. And what is there to deal with this? Slaps down a Robo at the front. The Stalker will go into the wall, but it's 3 Reapers and 2 Hellions. And wait a second, the Probe locks the Stalker outside. And the Terrans will have their way with it. Take it down. The robotics facility under fire in the most literal sense. Is he gonna cancel the Robo with Reaper Hellion? The Adept comes out very optimistically, still permanently damaged. The grenade bounces it back, forces the cancel, takes out the Adept. The Stalker, the Probe comes in. And yes, the Hellion is taken down, but the Reapers are in the main and working on the Probes. The workers are not safe. Another grenade, forced to pull some of the Probes away. We'll kill another one. So 4 misses the last one, but 4 Probes killed. He delays the robotics facility. He kills 2 Reapers and a Stalker. Or he kills 2 Adepts and a Stalker. Which, well, that is more than he bargained for, and I'm sure Clem drives a hard bargain. Widowmine comes in. Sacrifice is made, and the Stalkers take it out, so a small victory for MaxPax in defusing that so quickly. But Clem just walks up, breaks down the door, and murders the Probes inside their main base. MaxPax, no matter how many times these two play, they both find ways to get inordinate amounts of damage done with an obscenely small amount of units. Because it's not about how small your army is, or how large. It's about how you use it. And speaking of, the Blink Stalkers, just 4 of them. The only high ground vision will be a hallucinated Phoenix now flying across the map. And a bulwark set up in order to stop exactly this, because Clem knows better than anyone the danger that Blink Stalkers pose. Possibly the only player to have had wild success with and against them in professional play. If we're not counting MaxPax playing PvP, but we don't like to count PvP because it's usually more of a finger painting situation. But I digress. And Protoss have like they have like claws, right? Or some of them just have swords for arm. Anyways, Observer. I'm doing a few little Observer push-ups, take a look around. And we'll spot where the main army is. Of course, the bulwark on the way. There's a uncloaked Banshee waiting for its opportunity. Not a huge danger. The Observer actually spots it as well. Meanwhile, Stalker's moving up. Raven's in position. And a single medevac of what will be just unstim Marines heading out the north side. Just constantly doing. So when you siege up the Observer, it gets more vision for that moment. But it also becomes a lot more vulnerable, but he blinks in. Nevermore, says MaxPax. He takes down the Raven. What a masterful bait by the best Protoss player. He turns what could have been a loss of an Observer into taking down the most expensive unit Clem has built so far. So overall, MaxPax unflustered by the early pressure that Clem has put on. But Clem, bringing the Banshee in the right side, but this isn't the real story. Couple Blinkstalkers come down, clearly drawing his attention away from the Marine drop. Just the naked Marine drop will delay the +1 ground weapons. Clem getting another big pick off here. He can just right-click on some of the probes, which, really, this is a hazardous working environment. But Clem is in the game, so that's not surprising. Oh, the Marines! They body block to cover the retreat. And their sacrifice is not in vain, because it's not unlikely the medevac would have been taken out if he was able to slip back there. So, a relatively tame start between these two, as neither player throwing a full haymaker, but instead just a few exploratory punches and jabs between the early Reaper Hellion and medevacs and the Blinkstalker aggression. But both of them now with third bases ready to go. 60 workers. Clem has a slight supply lead, but that's usually a little misleading because of how Warp Gate works. If the supply lead is more than 10, well, that's quite significant. But you can easily warp in 8 to 16 supply at a time every 30 seconds or so. And MaxPax is quite diligent about it. Stalkers try to come in, I think distracting for the Prism, and actually maybe an opportunity. There are multiple siege tanks here, though. The Widow Mine and Clem's other siege tank going to help out. A bit of a tag team duo there. No. Oh, yes, let's watch it again. Thanks, Jimmy. That's really what I wanted. Not the battle report, no. What do you mean we don't have the battle report? They didn't host the game. Anyways, well, yeah, CB's on the run. We get to relive this exciting experience. The siege tank's definitely taken down. At least they get a promotion now. Observer in place. Clem didn't notice it or didn't care. Maybe. Well, that's a perfect location. I'm sure Clem knows it's around somewhere. Medevac? No, Banshee gets taken down at the southern base. But it looks like despite our best efforts here, we're going to be going to a macro game. As so many games between these two have ended before the 10-minute mark because mostly of the Blinkstalker aggression or failure of it throughout many of their series. But Clem kind of preempted it with his early pressure, and MaxPax, by the time he came across to the Blinkstalkers, it was very clear they weren't going to be the deciding factor. So, here we are. With MaxPax on 4 bases, he's got Colossi expanded to the south, interestingly. Going to try to defend entirely along that angle. He's working on Colossi with extended thermal lance. He's got +2 ground weapons on the way. But Clem, he's not slowing down. He's got an armory, a 4th command center, starting Viking production, and finishing his +1 infantry armor. Now, key things to look out for, of course, are expansion timings, whenever they're teching up, and the weapons upgrades. Armor's all well and good, but in these sort of engagements, it's all about the weapons getting as much damage done as quickly as possible, especially for Protoss, but also for Terran. And making sure you can win the start of the fight so you can clean up on the second half. Shrine to Dark is on the way. Dark Templar, always quite the Achilles heel for Clem, especially with Blink in the late game. It's very difficult to deal with Dark Templar in the right place at the right time when you're trying to micro against Disruptors, Storm, Colossi, of which only one is on the field so far, but I have my suspicions the double Ds of destruction will be on the agenda momentarily. Siege tank in position. Meanwhile, more charge slots getting completely cut off, but simultaneously, we have MaxPax moving in with the main force of his army. So many charge lots out the front. Widow Mines will slow things down and eat up a few of the Zealots, but MaxPax is now looking at 5 bases. He has plenty of probes, but Clem also has plenty of SCV, so let's not get carried away on that part. Stalkers, knockout, another Viking, Colossi in position. Great concave here for MaxPax. Actually sniping some charge lots, which seems a bit gratuitous, especially when you could eventually use that energy for EMP. Charge lots trying to come in from the north side. Eat a Widowmine hit. What upgrades are finishing? MaxPax just finished +2 attack and extended thermal lance. He has 3 Colossi. Not 4, not 2, but 3 Colossi will be the number. Enough to kill Marines in a single volley of incinerating fire and do a lot of damage to Marauders without being too vulnerable to the Vikings overhead. But speaking of, the Vikings gonna start their volleys. Charge lots coming in from the left flank will draw Siege Tank and with them on fire. And some of the Terran units are drawn away as the first Disruptor glides up to the front lines. Clem will now be very aware of it. The scan spots the entirety of the army. Clem still about 20 seconds off his 2-2 upgrades, and I'm sure he's just trying to bide his time until then. Both of them effectively maxed out. Whenever MaxPax decides on his next round of units, he could easily warp them in. All the upgrades are completing. These armies just get a lot more dangerous to one another. +1 ship weapons and 2-2 infantry. Meanwhile, here come the charge lots. Disruptor shot flung out. Marauders lean into it. Not quite enough to kill him off. Another shot. Colossus in the red as the Vikings chase it down. And our Danish player should be very aware of how dangerous the Vikings can be. 2 Colossi toppled. And now the Disruptors in full retreat as the Terran army seems to have just reached that critical mass that is so hard to beat. MaxPax driven back for now. I don't think a permanent situation, just to regroup and assess his options. Also, fighting into Clem's concave on his terms, not exactly the ideal move for long-term success. He has to be very careful. Cuts off a ghost. Limiting the ghost count is usually a big part of finding a success in the later game as Protoss. If there's enough EMPs to just blanket every single unit on the field, your army is effectively cut in half. But if there's only 1 or 2 ghosts, that's just not that plausible. And the Disruptors are finding connections. Colossus helping out, zoning the Marines away. A charge lot force field from the back. He actually locks him in, and Clem is forced to pick up and get out. The Vikings will take down the Colossus. He's dropping out with the Planetary Fortress to backstop all this. But MaxPax decides that the only force field that actually matters is one he can hold him in place with the side blades. The Vikings hit the deck after taking out the last Colossus. Might as well participate on the ground. And they're actually remarkably good against everything but the charge lots. Clem is building 4 medevacs at a time. He's working on his 3-3 upgrades. Meanwhile, MaxPax already has +3 ground weapons. He's got +2 armor halfway done. He's adding on more gateways, and 6 bases are pretty much ready to go. 76 probes, and I'm sure he's not going higher, so that way he maintains enough army supply to compete with Clem on the field. If he goes to like 85 probes, that's another medevac or 2 Clem can send out that doesn't have an answer in terms of supply. But here comes MaxPax. He's got plenty of Disruptors. A lot of the army supply for Clem is split off to the side, not offering much of a target to MaxPax's army. But he's going to drive forward. The charge lock count is so damn high, shield stripped away, but Disruptor shot finds a couple ghosts. Another ghost and a bunch of Marines obliterated. Clem replacing all this immediately, starting to build Liberators, but they're not on the field yet. Another EMP. Disruptor finds a connection as Clem trapped in a prison of his own design. He gets stuck with his back to a command center, and now MaxPax is maybe getting into a bit of a dicey scenario. He's stuck in the natural. He does have recall, but the moment he uses it, Clem will pounce. Another Disruptor shot. The medevacs are nearly out of energy. Just the sheer amount of stims, let alone anything else. Clem holding the high ground, lifts the natural. Another Colossus comes up, Vikings in the sky immediately upon spotting it. 3-3 upgrades about to complete, 5 seconds out. Disruptors still staggering them well, still always has another shot or 2. And he takes down the turret, opens up an opportunity for the Ruptor shot. Now firing from the high ground is Clem. Hasn't come down the ramp for a while. The Disruptors, MaxPax continually reinforcing. 3,800 minerals in the bank. Another shot connects. And Clem is starting to run out of units. Loses an orbital command. The Liberators are going to siege. The bunker is filled. Vikings hit the deck again. The Terran army, but there's a planetary here. Another Disruptor shot connects. He fires off a double barrel, but I think that was all the shots he had. The last Disruptor is popped. Vikings hit the deck. Guardian Shield helping out. Reinforcements diving into Liberator range. The Stalkers from the north will take down the Liberator, helping with some of the damage. 25 SCVs dead, but Clem manages to turn it around after several minutes straight of fighting. Eventually, Clem musters the reinforcements, he whittles down the disruptors, he knocks out the Colossi, and Clem will hold. But we have to ask the question, looking at the money in the bank and the bases on the field, at what cost? MaxPax replenishing 13 Stalkers and 2 Colossi at a time. Clem has lost 1,700 more gas and a similar amount of minerals. He's down 15 workers. But he's now transferring his army composition to something better suited. He's getting Liberators, though MaxPax has done a great job of keeping the unit count at bay. Multiple Liberators, though, sieging up to the south in the 9 o'clock position. Actually, 3 bases simultaneously. The income for MaxPax just completely tanked, as Clem now takes his biggest income lead of the game as the Liberators zone things out temporarily. And now, Clem gonna be working up to the high ground. Those Liberators popping a few more extra probes, but so far not critical. 11 Dark Templar are being warped in. DT Blink is done. +3 armor is almost completed for MaxPax, but the Vikings are closing in the center. Where will the Dark Templar go? That is the question. The first wave of Dark Templar is going to be critical. He needs to kill a base with this. Clem doesn't quite react. Meanwhile, a fight happening in the center of the map, keeping Clem busy. The planetary fortress is eviscerated by the Dark Templar, and MaxPax manages to zone Clem out on the field. A resounding success, and now Clem going to try to find some of his own. He drives right down the center. Some of the reinforcements are going to be cut off by the main army. The charge lots, there is no recall. He has to fight his way out of this, but he has to go through the side lanes of the charge lots. Gets a disruptor, but the Liberators and Vikings towards the high ground are making it difficult. MaxPax still slicing through. The third base has been gutted, but the Terran army, still a lot to contend with. MaxPax pulls back, 3 Colossi together, but Clem is down to 51 SCVs, and the DTs are recalled out, but Clem manages to survive with most of his army supply. But that income lead has completely flipped, as MaxPax, with over 2,000 more income per minute, he's managed to get another base to the 6 o'clock. He still has 68 probes, 2 disruptors on the way, but neither player able to bounce back economically the way they were in the last couple fights. Things are getting more and more tense as the resources thin through the actions of both players. The Warp Prism found an opportunity, a warping in the main, and Clem doesn't have that many reinforcements to deal with it. The main Bio Ball faces off against a Ball of Purification. That one gonna be left out, though. Vikings hit the deck in the main after taking out the Prism. A single DT will be absolutely annihilated by Liberators outside the northern base, and Clem still stimming forward. Another disruptor shot forces him back, leads into it, and the Marauders will get cut off. MaxPax's supply dips. Force fields lock in some of the units, but make it more difficult for the charge lots to engage. The Bioball, the Medivacs are entirely out of energy. The Vikings hit the deck. The DT is going around the back, but the Liberators are still covering. Another DT gets taken out, and Clem is forced back for now. He's down to 43 SCVs, 66 probes for MaxPax still. The DT blinking out of the scan forces another scan. There are 5 orbital commands, but he definitely doesn't want to be scanning twice per Dark Templar at this stage. MaxPax making magic happen with these fancy units, and now slicing his way through. The reinforcements getting cut off in the most... Yep, those are DTs. Very rare you see Clem do one of these... are those Dark Templar scans. But for once, he doesn't have the units to deal with them. He blanked in. Meanwhile, Clem is just diving for the 12 o'clock base. MaxPax, this will be triggered a base trade. The bottom 2 base is going to be cut off, but Clem's planetary will be taken down uncontested down the center. 2 Nexi will fall. MaxPax still with 191 to 168 supply. Is going to come around the back of these Liberators. Disruptor gets a hit. And the Medivacs are still very low on energy. They've never been able to heal everything up. Clem down to 150 versus 184 supply. But 2 robotics facilities can be targeted. At some point, if there are no more orbital commands, the Dark Templar could be enough. Though EMP is a temporary supplement. Hallucinates a Colossus for high ground vision. The Terran army still going to work. Both players supply blocked. Neither are going to be able to rebuild at all. MaxPax managed to escape with a couple dozen probes to the bottom right corner, and now he's coming back home with the Blink Stalkers to try to work on this. The disruptor count is damn high, and Clem, not paying attention, eats a hit. Yet another one as well. And with no liberators to zone this out, the disruptors are effectively uncontested. There's still enough gateway units. EMPs, the Dark Templar. And now what? What is this? Production, Clem's is empty, as he has 0 mining, which is not very much. MaxPax may actually finish the base in the bottom right, but otherwise he has like 1.5 bases of mining. I think only about 30 probes are actually looking at resources they can reliably mine at the moment, which is still better than Clem's total of 18 SCVs, all of them at that one orbital. Another disruptor. He manages to pick up all but one, but disruptors no longer kill marauders in a single hit. Though those marauders, I'm sure, not too happy about it. Though the fact that they could live to be angry, I guess, is a defining characteristic. The DT is still cutting things off. The orbital command count is down to 3, and only 2 of them are on the ground right now. There's a grand total of 5 ghosts. I think most of them with the army with full energy here. The fact that MaxPax took this bottom right corner, this is like a Bronze League here. Clem has so little information about it. He's trying to land an orbital command here, which is actually very good for him. Not because he's going to be able to land it, but because he's going to scout this base. Oh my god, the Nexus just evaporates under the withering fire of a bunch of dudes with drugs and guns. And the base is spotted, and now Clem, I think he's got an angle for it. MaxPax's gonna harry him on the way there. The army supply is still dangerously close to even. 3-3 for both sides. No shield upgrades. The orbital will lift. There is a DT at this base. The bioball's still so strong. EMPs across the bow. The disruptors taking their time coming up. The force field ignored by them, but the disruptors wander forward. He gets a couple. The Vikings are back in the sky to contest the Colossus. Stalkers take a couple out. A single DT uses a scan. Scans the main as well. We see the aftermath of another Dark Templar, but MaxPax unable to save the base. I think he recalled out the probes. Indeed he did, and now they're gonna long distance mine, but the Stalker's still going to work. Clem has enough army supply. In fact, he's equal, which is, well, it really depends here. The DTs are still such an important part. More disruptors. He still has 4 of them, which is enough to juggle his way forward. The charge lot's cutting off reinforcements, but then realizes that the main brunt of Clem's force is here. And somehow, so many times between these two, we just see them trading blows. And somebody wins a round and we go to the next one. But we've played 4 rounds in a single game now. And to be honest, it's been MaxPax just hammering Clem. But Clem just keeps getting back up. He still has an army that could easily win the game. But MaxPax, all he needs to do is land a disruptor shot or 2. And finally put him down for good. This, in my opinion, my very humble, one of the most humble opinions you'll ever know, is MaxPax's game to lose. Despite the army supply, he has the tools, but it is a precarious situation at that. He's doing such a great job with the Dark Templar. Another scan. There are only 3 orbitals. The medevac count is still so high. And, he wanders in. The Colossi disruptor shot connects underneath. Another shot curveball. He finds it. Another disruptor is taken down, though. The Colossi getting huge swipes before the Vikings are able to get to the front lines. The Stalkers are targeting down the Vikings. The Marauders, here come the charge lots for the back, but he goes directly into the fray. Charge lots force the pickup, and the Colossi are still intact, and Clem does not retreat back. He goes forward, which manages to dodge the Blink Stalkers. If he had retreated back, then MaxPax would have just chased him to the ends of the earth. But instead, he fakes him out. What a play. He doubles back, and now Clem is going to put everything on the line with a drop of doom. There is a recall available, but if he overcommits to it, in fact, a recall might be disastrous. Does he just pick up and get out? He does. Before the Blink Stalkers can get even close. He's getting chased down. Clem on the ropes right now, but again, refuses to go down. He parts the Red Sea, another Ruptor shot, and another army is headed toward the top left corner. He needs that to keep MaxPax out of position. He just dropped the recall. He just forced it out. His army's getting chased down, but another army to the top left corner. The probes will not escape this time unless Clem doesn't notice they ran to the corner. It's just Marines, but there's nothing to contest them. He warps in a few more Zealots, a few more Dark Templar, but the army has nothing left. The command center will land, and MaxPax will commit. There's only so many orbitals, so many scans left. And it might not be about whose army wins, but about who has buildings left. The orbital command, the disruptor shots. Clem has 0 minerals, and he's not mining. Whatever he has left on the field is all he has left in the game. The Colossus will be targeted down, but there's no answer. There's one answer for the Dark Templar, the orbital command in the main base. He scans and he takes out the last DT, but MaxPax has enough for one more Dark Templar. And much like the story of StarCraft 2, one Dark Templar could change everything. But, to be honest, I may have oversold it. He doesn't need the DT. There's still enough. There are 0 workers left. There's nothing, but Clem cannot contest this army. The disruptor shot comes in. The stalkers will chase the medevac. There is no escape. We cannot get out. They are coming. And that's it. There's nothing left. The medevac goes down. And after 28 minutes, MaxPax will take. I said MaxPax will take game. Wait. Okay. So Clem right now is banking that MaxPax doesn't have enough money to rebuild probes. And if he didn't, it would be a draw. And Clem actually just straight up asked him. That is exactly what was... Oh my. Game 1 goes to MaxPax by one singular probe. What? Okay. Well. And now... MaxPax keeping him busy for most of the game. Clem continually breaking out, but I think MaxPax doing a great job of mitigating the potential of Clem's army. He never gives him enough of a target. He never had that decisive, oh, I just won the game fight. And whenever he lost units, it was on Clem's side of the map. Which means that he had time to rebuild. If you lose that fight in the middle of the map or near one of your bases, Clem just takes probably the game, if not most of your economy. But when he loses a fight on Clem's side, that gives him enough time to at least build one more round out of the robo, a couple more sets of warpins. All right, really embodying the fact that the best defense is a good offense. And everyone's building buildings in their base, so I have a little bit of time to pontificate, one of my favorite things. But I will say, I am upset with these players. When I watch Clem versus MaxPax play Terran versus Protoss, which is quite a common matchup nowadays, and then I watch anyone else play Terran versus Protoss, it looks like college versus pro, and amateur versus professional. It's just such a stark difference. And in the long term, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, but in the short term, it is quite entertaining. So, I truly hope. Well, you made it to game 2, and now you're here. So it'd be awesome if you could smash that like button. Stop saying it like that. Just say like and subscribe. Okay. And I don't even know if it does anything. It's just generally when you get people to interact or engage in any way, they're more likely to watch for longer, and that's the real key. And I do also, while I've got your attention, hopefully the whole time, want to address the clickbaits. Now, I'm going to have a hard time not clickbaiting that last game. And here's the thing. It's not for you, dear viewer, who watches all the videos and are amazing and incredible and intelligent and every other compliment you could ever want and then some. It's for the people who've never watched before. Because for a while I stopped doing the clickbait titles. It'd be like just player, matchup, tournament. You know what? While people kept watching, no new players came in. No new... And that's the thing. You know, most people are not as intelligent as you, dear StarCraft viewer. They don't know about the beauty, the glory, and the horror of StarCraft 2. So that's who we're drawing in. And it works. Do I like it? Not really. Do I want more people to watch and have that be the only sustainable way to keep the best esport and the best content going? Yes. So, hopefully, it won't be too much of a turnoff because it's not stopping anytime soon. It's probably only going to get worse. I wish it didn't work so well. And I truly... Now, just to be clear, when I say this is the best or highest skilled or fastest, it's true. Okay, they just keep getting better. It's actually... madness. And yeah, sometimes a game of the year level game might happen every other week. It might happen back to back. I can't predict it. I wish I could. Actually, I don't wish I could. That'd be boring. But, like, Clem versus MaxPax have played 50 games in the last month. And I think that was the best one yet. And that was only game 1. In fact, they played an entire best of 7 that was like 40 minutes just last week before this series. So, you never know what you're going to get. Clem versus MaxPax is like a box of chocolates. Pandora's box of chocolates. Surprise, Dark Templar. Well, Blink is on the way as the doors keep opening and shutting to keep the shades out, the revolving door of them. Meanwhile, the Hellion chase down. So far, no losses on either side. Max manually shutting. Does Clem actually... Does he hotkey the depot? Yes, he has a hotkey for the depots, and that's why he's opening and closing both. Because he's just hitting the hotkey for it. Alright, well, you gotta have your door micro. Hero, take notes! If only Protoss doors work like that. I believe the Hellion finally went down. And there goes a Marine. This map actually has low gravity. We're like on a space station or something. So... it is very cool. One of the first maps I've seen that wasn't just underwater to have that low gravity thing. I do want to have more, sort of. This bunker is... Alright. Other SCV comes in to take all the credit. Cut the ribbon on it. And finally completes the shade. Siege tank obliterates the adept, but... Another just full macro start. The Raven just barely out of range of the Spylon. Shuts down the Raven. And the Stalker's waiting for their opportunity, which is just keeping map control. I do wonder... I don't think it's like a meta thing. I think it's a Clem versus MaxPax mind game. Both these players now going for such macro-oriented builds instead of heavy aggression. honestly, somebody did the math on it. I didn't see the entire conclusion, but how often are Clem and MaxPax as a percentage of their entire lives in game with each other? And it's at least like on the average week, if you divide it by all the days, it's like 2 to 3 hours a day. So there have been multiple days with multiple finals of Clem versus MaxPax. I believe this tournament, Clem defeated MaxPax in the semifinals. MaxPax went to the losers bracket, fought his way back, and now here we are again. So Clem versus MaxPax making up a not insignificant percentage of all the games. We had a 2v2 tournament with Uthermal. And despite being on separate teams, the finals, Clem versus MaxPax. I can't tell if it's a complaint or just an observation. I'm incredulous at how consistent they are. But yeah, when you watch them play, you can truly see why. And now I've spent like 5 minutes of this game saying the same thing over and over, which I think is kind of impressive in and of itself. So like and subscribe. As so far, 2 adepts, about as close as we've ever gotten to no rush. 7 minutes and counting. 4th base on the way. Colossi, a 2nd one already stepping up. Still this kind of tense standoff as the Blink Stalkers will likely pick up anything that moves out. Clem! The Stalkers come up to try to get a pick-off, and Clem just panic fires at his own siege tank, which is better than the Stalkers ever could have done, I think. Very unlikely the Stalkers would have killed that siege tank, but whatever. But that desk pop right there ends up going horribly wrong. So now Clem has done more damage to Clem than MaxPax has done so far. But the Blink Stalkers trying to at least put themselves on the board, almost picking off the Raven. Zealot counter ready. All right, so here we are, approaching 200 supply. Clem, just well, now down one more. Matter of fact, MaxPax is relentless. He has vision everywhere. He knows the map is dark and full of Terrans, so he's trying to light it up best he can. He's got zealots, he's got observers, he's got spylons. He's trying to keep beads on a beat on wherever Clem goes, because he knows the moment he lets him out of his sight is when 3 medevacs are going to show up and kill a Nexus. So Dark Shrine's on the way. More zoning turrets. Clem not quite maxed out. He's on 3 bases going on 4. Clem is 4 bases going on 5. We now have +2 infantry weapons started, +1 infantry armor about to complete. Second robo on the way? Yeah, 2nd robo on the way for MaxPax, as well as a Shrine to Dark. He's got +2 ground weapons as well in production. Ghost Academy and Vikings. It's a macro day. All right. How many Marauders is that? 21 Marauders. Going at 69 SCVs with now 4 command centers for a nice baseline economy to work into the late game. They're both maxed out at almost exactly 10 minutes. Though losing like 5 Stalkers is going to make that less true for MaxPax. Though he warps in another round of charge. He wants to go. He's going. He just maxed out. +1 armor's about to complete. There's nothing else to wait for but maybe disruptors. Traps in several Marauders. Clem saved them while firing over the top of the Vikings. Meanwhile, some charge lots heading in towards the 3rd base, but quite a bunker setup. Though the bunker on the outside of the depots makes it more vulnerable to the charge lots. Colossi. Disruptors coming up, trying to take down some of the Vikings. A lot of orange on those Colossi. Shields stripped away as well. Warp Prism backs off the Vikings. Not quite able to get the volleys to take it out. Ship weapons level 1. Now completed. A big upgrade for dealing with the Colossi, and also helps the Vikings on the ground. More charge lots. The Bio Ball. Disruptor shot wards away for now, but +2/+2 is about to complete for Clem. MaxPax has so much money in the bank. He's building 4 more gateways that'll bring him to 14. Now Clem, with most of that Bio Ball. Planetary Fortress backstopping all this, though. Another charge lock counter. This one jammed into the Sim City of Clem. He's finally found a way to keep those charge lots out. Meanwhile, Triple Drop is loaded up. Clearly scanning for observers. Where are you going? Oh, and then just ends up going over to the right flank. Wants to set up some sort... Ghost dodges forward, though I don't think it got an EMP on the army. Vikings almost able to take out one of the Colossi immediately. The siege tanks in position. Widowman's bunker, making it very difficult for MaxPax to just attack in here. Another scan spotting the main thrust of the army, but the Colossus is taken down. Dodges one of the Ruptor shots. Another shot. Doesn't really find anything. Another Colossus will be taken out. The force fields barely stopping anything at all. And there's no more Ruptors. Another one cooling down in the back, but that's actually more than enough Terran to just rip through all of this. Disruptor shot fired. It's a single Marine, but the army on the ground, is he going to try to recall this? It's already too late. The reinforcements are on the way. Vikings on the deck. Guardian Shield helping a bit, but the Stalkers just try to retreat from this fight. And MaxPax is entirely wiped out. I know I said the key to MaxPax's play is he fights on Clem's side of the map. But that wasn't a fight. That was a rout. Clem with a decisive victory. That Disruptor show! I'd like to report a murder. Which is not unique to these two, but that Disruptor just saved the game for MaxPax. Clem clearly looking another direction. And the Marines will pay a heavy price. The problem is not that MaxPax doesn't have the money. He doesn't have enough production to spend it. 14 gates are still not enough to spend the money he has in the bank reliably. So adding more Robos, more Ruptors, but that one shot kept Clem at bay and buys MaxPax a lot of space. But here comes MaxPax again. Bunker taken down by the Stalkers. Fires a shot around the corner. Liberators now sieging up. A Venn diagram of freedom on top of the command center. The charge lots easily getting picked off. But in the main base, Dark Templar warped in, going for the add-ons. They're going to be uninstalled. Meanwhile, Clem knows the danger. Oh no! The Ruptors! It's a disaster! He fires the shot, pops one, the other one off cooldown. Or on... Either way, it's dead now. And that is another massive pickoff as MaxPax wanders through the center of the map. The oldest mistake, the most common, yet the most devastating. You simply cannot lose those Disruptors. Not like that. And now Clem, despite MaxPax's income and the money he has in the bank, again, not able to replenish the army by the time Clem's coming across the map. Vikings will take out the proxy. Now this time, Clem will be aware. Parts the Red Sea. And the medevacs are healing things up pretty quickly. Loses one. The Nexus under fire. Reinforcements on the way. There's still some DTs in Clem's main base. The Nexus is taking a lot of hits, though. Another Disruptor shot will be warded away. The Vikings trying to deal with the Dark Templar counters. Another army coming up. Disruptors popped on the front lines. The charge lots will eviscerate a few of the reinforcements. More charge lots at the back will be hunted down. Clem still nearly maxed out. Double Ruptor production continues. But Clem still has 68 SCVs, 190 supply. He's going to land another command center, and he has yet another command center outside his northern base. He's building an orbital out of it, just making it difficult and reinforcing most of his defenses so he can focus as much as possible on the main fight. And speaking of, another exploratory Ruptor shot. There are 5 Ruptors on the field, plenty of gateway units. Vikings joining up with the main army. Where are the Liberators in all this? Liberators just on top, anticipating a Dark Templar blink play. And MaxPax does have DT blink, but he's now running out of gas. Meanwhile, Clem starting to bank minerals and has plenty of gas as well. He's going up to a dozen barracks almost. MaxPax still has 14 gates and 3 robotics facilities. Charge lots cutting off some of the reinforcements. The main bio army will engage the stalkers and crush them if they stay around. Disruptor shots cutting off a few of the marines. Continues to carve his way through. The charge lots will retreat back to MaxPax's base over on the right side. Both players able to maintain quite an impressive economy despite everything. Clem angling over to the right. Vikings trundling along with the rest. Actually eats a disruptor hit. This planetary likely going to be given up by Clem. But there is no splash damage on the other side. MaxPax has some tough decisions to make. Fires off the Ruptors. Clem trying to deal with this. A couple Vikings coming up. Anything he can get. Obviously, the army's somewhat distracted by the planetary. Gonna knock out a Colossus. And he's quickly running out of time to recall this army to save the day. Another Nexus will be taken down. 18 workers on either side. Down goes a second Nexus. And MaxPax clearly angling for a recall or just a flank on the main army. Clem, though, pulling back. Trading 2 bases for 1. Definitely favorable. Though has to be careful which direction. One of the medevacs is cut off. They're both still near 200 supply, which is quite impressive considering how many workers they lost. But we're going to be left in a similar scenario to last game where the economies get lower. It becomes harder and harder to replace these units. What a series already. This is just game 2. Scouting disruptor hits. MaxPax comes into the center base yet again. The Stalkers eating the brunt of the siege tank fire. Another Ruptor shot. Clips the front line. Another fade away. Meanwhile, charge lots will be cut off. And Clem has expanded to the 1 o'clock position. MaxPax has the entire southern half of the map. Vikings constantly chipping away at the Colossi, but MaxPax maintaining so much money in the bank. The Viking count. So many. Disruptor shots, the fadeaway to try to cover for the Stalkers, but the Vikings will take down a Colossus nonetheless. Another volley of scans will spot the army. The Disruptors, who's flanking who? Whomst. Meanwhile, the Terran army looking quite strong. The Stalkers fighting back. Trying to take down the Vikings, but there's so much Terran here, and it's closing in. He's out of Ruptor shots. That's easily spotted by Clem. A couple more Ruptors coming up, but the damage output of the Terran army is so high. The Vikings will knock down the last Colossus. The force fields actually will zone out MaxPax's army, while Clem just rips apart yet another Nexus. And this time around, Clem was the aggressor throughout the game, and I'm very hard-pressed to see MaxPax taking this one back. The Disruptors firing off yet another volley. But coming up short again and again and again. That's so many charge lots. Probes as well. One Disruptor easily popped, but he's on the other side of things while the Disruptors take their sweet time here. He fires off a shot, but just stimming his way forward. Another Disruptor popped, and there's too much Terran. Clem powers through and strikes back, evening up the series. 1-1. What a series, what a game. Clem turning it around. I'm trying to think of what the difference was. Well, the DTs never got the momentum. Ley Lines is a larger map, more space to retreat back to. And even then, Clem drew it to the full base trade scenario. But the DT shut down. Clem adapted. And now, we're all tied up at 1-1. Still quite surprised at how little early aggression. I wonder, maybe this is the start of a trend where the Blink Stalkers are so figured out that we go to the later game? Because still, it comes down to whether or not the engagements go the right way. It is remarkably Clem, I don't think he makes it look easy, but he does make it look unstoppable. That perfectly controlled Terran Ghost Viking army, you technically have the counter to everything. Practically, well, everyone has a plan till they get a disruptor shot to the mouth. And since Protoss don't have mouths, they are unaffected by such profound statements. I have no mouth, but I must balance wine. Maybe balanced out by some cheese? Nothing yet. If we don't get at least one bunker rush or proxy gate by the end of the series, I will be mildly disappointed. Just saying. Bro, gonna be corralled by the SCVs. What, you run out of Marines? Hey, Billy, it's like 2 minutes. We don't even have any Marines. Big job, huh? What? Reactor immediately after. 1 racks expand for Clem. Ramp up to the high ground. Gives a significantly more leeway for early expansion opportunities. Factory behind. The Cyclone has all but... So, with the nerf/change to the Cyclone yet again, Clem's most common sort of strategy, mostly fallen by the wayside. The Cyclone's still a good sniper unit, kind of shuts down Stargate entirely, just too much of an expense most of the time against a very active and capable Blinkstalker micro player like MaxPax. And speaking of, the Twilight Council's on the way yet again. Marines on the high ground. So, the nuance of Terran versus Protoss. I feel much like a mirror matchup. It takes a bit more delving into things. As it's not so obvious as with the creep spreading across the map or any sort of outright attacks. It's the momentum. Like last game, how, despite the fact MaxPax had the money, he was never able to actually deny any of Clem's expansions. And now, here come the Adepts. Just hanging out behind the mineral line. He gets both of them out. Again, Clem kind of ceding the map to MaxPax early on in favor of getting a little more economy. Robotics facility is on the way. The most middle-of-the-road version of Blinkstalker aggression. He's going to have 4-gate blink, which is, he is intending on getting at least some damage done. But still keeping the option open for a third base. The Robo with observers and warp prism in order to reinforce, scout, and of course, if there's something like cloaked Banshees or Widowmines, becomes very, very important to keep that alive. Scouting Hellion will take a turn upon seeing the Adepts down on the low ground. Widowmine drop headed out towards the main. Hellion still going. And catch me if you can. Anything that distracts the Stalkers, very helpful for increasing the odds of the Widowmine drop. So not just scouting, but dragging the Stalkers out of position. MaxPax will react. The sacrifice. But he's recalculating. Just keeping the Widowmine. He's retargeting it while it's off course. Finally gets the sacrifice. The Stalkers blink in to make sure it can't get away. But the amount of mining time lost is immense. And he kills 2 probes as well. So not the worst take so far. Also, the Hellion's in place of where a third base is intending to go. That is a lot of Stalkers, though. The SCVs are pulled immediately. The bunker conveniently close. The Marines are being cut down. Where are the siege tanks? They're both in the main base, but he went directly in the front door. The Marines will be cut down, but the bunker holds. So Clem, not in a terrible position quite yet. Just what? Okay, he waltzes right in. Lungs past, auto turret slapped down. Ghetto blinking back with the prism. The SCVs will suffer the brunt of this. Blinks out with the rest of the stalkers. And he got away. 6 stalkers lost is quite a significant blow. And I think Clem just Selecto army the medevac back, but manages to get through. The bunker itself will fall. Stalkers will as well. The Raven doesn't have energy. More stalkers going down. But he's picking off so many Marines and SCVs. With this extra siege tank, I think he'll finally be driven back, but MaxPax is really keeping the pressure on. Now, behind this, he hasn't really built up a ton of probes, even though Clem... Oh my! He just blinks in, he gets the Raven, he gets a siege tank, but he gets a lot of those stalkers killed off as well. He just keeps going! He's keeping the aggression up to keep Clem from coming across the map with a deadly counterattack, but at what point does he suffer from diminishing returns? Apparently not yet. A single stalker out in front. Blinks in, takes out a medevac. Siege tank well protected by the command center, but another siege tank. There's yet another siege tank in the main base, which will be doing a lot of damage. Stim is technically vulnerable here. Not going to be able to take it out. Combat shield begins immediately. The full bulwark, but he just keeps going into the natural. No respect for the high ground or anything on it. That single siege tank keeping him at bay. But another wave of stalkers is warped in, and MaxPax finally acknowledging he might need a little more tech than that. As he gets charged, starts a forge back at home, and he's been building some probes on his third. Despite losing 12 SCVs, Clem is still only a few behind, 57 to 49 now. Takes out the observer. So MaxPax needed to get continued damage done. He needed to whittle down the opportunity to counterattack. Did he do what he needed? Did he get enough damage? Maybe. Clem clearly not feeling comfortable with moving out quite yet. The 2 medevacs, combat shield, and +1 that he has completing may change that. Whereas MaxPax just getting a 4th base, a robotics bay, and clearly angling for a massive amount of gateway units to keep Clem busy. He puts some soon-to-be charge lots in the prism, joins up the stalkers. Don't do it! Oh my. All those stalkers badly bruised. I don't think the SCVs are going to oblige by repairing. Stalkers in position to spot any drops. Once you take that much damage, you just get turned into a scout that'll die with a single drop spotting it. But the drop will be spotted, and that's the important part. The stagger blink back as the bodies of the Marines get pushed along the field by the tanks. He gets another stalker on the way out. But so far, Clem still kept at bay. The fact that MaxPax is equal on supply, maintaining a worker lead, Clem might be playing overly defensive here. MaxPax has cut some severe corners. All right, he's rounding out the build with a 4th base. He's chrono boosting supply block Colossi. We've all been there. No extended thermal lance yet, but he even has an immortal. His army has not yet been spotted by Clem. The stalkers on the edge of things.
Complete.
Clem with quite an odd setup in the main, the remnants of the bulwark. A hallucinated Archon on top of things, eating some of the damage. Actually, I think he target fired it. Not quite believing what he was seeing, and he shouldn't have, but an awkward engagement angle. Though MaxPax still maintains a supply lead, getting into the natural. There's nothing in the bunker. Most of the reinforcements on the high ground. Going for the warpers, but the force fields lock in a handful of units. Viking will be targeted. Zealots find 7 more SCVs. Now cutting through some of the reinforcements. Handful of gateway units moving out. Widowmine will help. And the reinforcements cut off some of this. Force field, optimistic at best. +1 ground weapons just now finished for MaxPax. Takes out the Viking. There's another one on the field. More charge lots on the way. SCV's transferring at a very precarious timing. The bunker is burning, but it holds for now. High ground helping out. Colossus stepping forward into the fray. And Clem's medevacs are out of energy. But MaxPax, he is playing with fire here. That bunker needs to be repaired. Will be just in time as he draws attention to it. The autumn colors of these Terran units looking very dicey right now. Juggle's back in Immortal. The Liberator Siege is up, and that should be enough to keep MaxPax at bay for a little while longer. The Stalkers blinking out, but the Marauders breaking their kneecaps and taking down a couple more. So many of those Stalkers badly bruised. Coming in again. He won't stop a single Liberator, not enough. And a lot of the units caught on the wrong side of the force fields won't be able to pick them up in time. MaxPax continues just cutting his way through, staying on the very edge of disaster, but keeping Clem busy and starting to carve out a bit of a supply lead. Another warp in, as Clem unable to stabilize. 2 Colossi now. No extended thermal lands, but another Viking is shot down by the Stalkers. Clem trying to reposition, gets into the bunker. The Liberator in a very useful spot. MaxPax 74 workers to 61. The bunker vulnerable. The SCV is not even pulled to repair. He's getting onto the mineral line. Again, no thermal lands means the Colossi could be very vulnerable, but now the SCVs are pulled. He's trying to target them, but that's just too much. MaxPax burns his way through all the way to match point. Wow. What a game. Yet again. MaxPax well, it seemed like overstaying his welcome, but you gotta let him cook. As one mediocre fight away from potentially losing the entire game. But he maintained that edge and eventually cut through with it. So, here we go. Is this 2 best of 3s? Well, yet again, we find ourselves on Whispers of Gold. I believe this is actually 2 best of 3 series. And now Clem is able to get back into it if he wins this one. But, or MaxPax, the other way around. Either way, we're just going to treat it in a similar fashion. MaxPax up 2. Clem out 1. We flip sides at least, as well as change colors somewhat confusingly. And now, it's time. This should make a distinct difference. Jimmy! Because MaxPax was from the loser's bracket, what that means is now he has to win another best of 3 here. So, how did you get that confused? We'll treat it like a best of 5, either way. I think the effects end up being the same at this point. But I digress. It's a MaxPax build. Yes, I know that's reductive. But the MaxPax build, just proxying a single gate near your opponent's base, not even having anything at home, and using that to put on a ridiculous amount of pressure. And if you need something at home, you can just recall. The first build and the first kind of iteration of Protoss that brought MaxPax onto the scene, I think Beastie Cutie was the one to discover him doing this, and eventually became all the rage, especially against Terran players, of course. Now, once it's figured out or spotted by something like a Reaper, clearly it loses some of its effect. But immediately, and there's no one more suited to dealing with this sort of aggression than Clem. He spotted it immediately. He didn't SCV scout, but he did send the Reaper looking for exactly this. And that means the Zealot, the advanced Protoss warrior with melee weapons, slower than even a worker moves. Seems like a bit of a design flaw, but I digress. The Reaper will chase down the second one. The Stalker's about to complete. I'm sure Clem is aware of that. And we'll send the Reaper across the map, which will create some very awkward situations here for MaxPax. as he needs something at home to defend. He's getting a shield battery to deal with exactly this. But eventually those units do need to be back at home. So Clem's expansion has been delayed just by the nature of the build outright. He's going to try to drain the energy of the shield battery, which will take quite a while. There should be a Stalker back at home in time to deal with that. So now what? This is more of the aggression I was expecting going into this series. Cyclone is on the way. A great single target choice. Seems this is the scenario where Clem chooses the Cyclone over anything else. Blink now has begun, and both players kind of playing it a little more careful, but it's going to end up being a similar scenario to what we see, well, pretty much every game. Blink versus early bio and some siege tanks, but the drama of fighting over this. There's the Cyclone. Is it worth warping in? I don't think so. He's gonna just have to let this pylon go, and in fact, the Stalker overstaying its welcome. He was dealing with a Reaper on the other side, and that will get the Stalker killed, it looks like. Bit of a mistake from Clem, or from MaxPax rather, and it will cost him. Oh, there we go. Robotics facility on the way, as both players kind of trying to adapt this into a more recognizable build. So MaxPax is ahead by 5 workers. Clem just finished up his second base. He doesn't have a starport yet. At least he didn't when I started that sentence. Though MaxPax, his third base just now starting as well. So everybody, understandably, about a minute delayed on most of the build. Stalkers. They have Blink done, but just 4 Stalkers. So, trying to keep things from scouting out. Clem going for a lot less siege tanks this time and straight into a bio push. Looks like he wants the reactor medevacs. He only has the 1 tank. I think he may have learned his lesson in the previous match, where the siege tanks are good, but the Blink Stalkers are so maneuverable. A lot of the time they end up being better. Gonna fight. Gets 2 of the Marines and juggles out quite well, only taking minimal hull damage. Stim and combat shield gonna be completing, and the double medevac. It's time. The triple threat is going to be hitting a lot earlier than usual. Well, he doesn't have the +1 weapons, but having both bio upgrades, I'm not sure if he caught a glimpse. He definitely saw it. The Stalkers are already moving to intercept. He caught a glimpse at the exact right timing to deal with that medevac drop, but doesn't want to get drawn too far out of position because then he loses all of that map control. 4 more gates on the way, but MaxPax still in a tenuous position as he has no other tech. There's no Robo Bay. It's just going to be charge. Does Clem pull the boys? No, 3rd command center on the way, so about the opposite of that thought process. Another drop heading in. I think he spotted it. He force fields. Great force field, but he just juggles to the other side. And will chase it down. Meanwhile, Stalkers getting hunted in the center of the map. Another very awkward positioning. The pylon. Is he actually going to go for it? Well, he might end up losing the medevac, actually. Meanwhile, the rest of the army coming in. MaxPax kind of forgot about the main thrust of this army, and now loses 2 near full energy sentries. Trying to target down a siege tank. Will get it. Couple Marauders cut off behind. No idea where that medevac ended up going. I think it was taken down by the Blink Stalkers, and MaxPax will be able to salvage this situation for now. We've got 2 more barracks on the way. The downside of no siege tanks here as the bio army being cut off by the charge lots. +1 is now done for Clem. MaxPax still about 20 seconds out. That's a few more workers, but just started the Robo Bay. Immortal is on the way. Clem not willing to overstay as he moves his units back just to deny a 4th base and threaten the main base. The natural looking mighty vulnerable at the moment. Sentry in position. Couple Widow Mines underneath. Clem mass scam with the main army. Double drop headed for the main. 2 Widow Mines inside. Charge lots attempted at the natural, but plenty of reinforcements on station for Clem. MaxPax keeps his stalkers tucked in, so Clem will commit to the drop, and then the stalkers can just target the medevac outright, take it down, and will sacrifice a couple on the altar of the mines. Meanwhile, charge lots coming in again, still not going to find success. The main army headed to the north side. MaxPax going to attempt a base, but there will be a Marine already waiting for it. 3 probes down. And MaxPax actually a few workers behind as Clem continues to progress. There is no extended thermal lance on the way. Takes out 1 medevac, will eat a couple stalker losses for it. The charge lot still chasing, medevac out of energy. And force field, not sure what exactly it's cutting off there, but the Widow Mine's in position to deny yet another base. Marine as well. Charge lot will deal with it. Energy recharge. Don't know what was over here that he took down, but Observer still spotting the reinforcements. Warp Prism still lurking around, so MaxPax has options for counterattacks, even though the Cyclone, it lived and it found the Prism. Oh no. He pre-scans his MaxPax, tries to use the vision blocker to break it, but Clem counters it with a scan. And the Prism is taken down, and that means Clem can focus everything on the direct attack. He's up 50 supply, 30 of that in army. In fact, the only reason, part of it is compounded by the fact he has so many more workers. MaxPax has not been building any probes for quite a while. And Clem, he dealt with the MaxPax build well, and I think he's just getting too big to fail at the moment. There are no disruptors, no Dark Templar. Conventional units aren't going to be enough to deal with this soon. Clem has so much momentum, and he's not putting himself in a position where he can be cut off. Force field, I take it all back. The force field's very helpful, but he slurps up the Marines and Marauders quickly. A couple of Vikings, but also Stalkers taken down in the exchange. MaxPax still very much struggling in supply. The Stalkers trying to get in position to cut things off, but the Viking count grows. That's really, I don't think I've ever seen anyone take down those rocks. The rocks outside the 3rd base opened up, giving Clem more space to work with. The choke point certainly favoring MaxPax with the Colossi. More Widow Mines triggered. Some charge lots and stalkers in the center of the map. MaxPax trying to hold on to things. Another mine. He's defusing it for now. Trying to drive things back. The Vikings out in front, but here comes the main army trying to do a pincer maneuver. But who's flanking who? The Stalker's in position, takes down another Viking. MaxPax driving it back for now. Knocks out another medevac. Still 3 Colossi working their way forward. 3 Vikings show up in the fray. And MaxPax may have won a battle, but the war is still going very much in Clem's favor. MaxPax so active with the Stalkers, and that's what's keeping him going here. The one moment he doesn't blink back, but a single Marine gonna be killing a not insignificant percentage of MaxPax's economy as he tries desperately to expand to a 4th base. The Marauders are badly bruised. The medevacs are nearly out of energy because Clem has been so focused on Viking production, and for good reason. The Colossi are an existential threat. Not sure why he landed the Vikings there, but MaxPax survives for now. He's still on 50 probes. He's been on borrowed time. His income, not sure what that ghost, just trying to hide over there. Trying to get out of work. MaxPax setting up for a Warp Prism counter. The Colossi back at home, but MaxPax has successfully bought the time he needed to build up a much stronger unit composition. Thing is, with Clem being maxed out, he could afford to be a little cost ineffective. And while MaxPax's army might be better in medium-sized groups, Clem will win the war of attrition. There's no Ruptors. MaxPax is trying to sneak out a few more probes now. But Clem is just maxed out, and he's packed his bags and is heading towards the other side of the map. EMPs on the Stalkers, the Vikings dodging back, charge lots looking for the pincer maneuver, another set of EMPs, Guardian Shield, very helpful, but Clem dodges back, and the charge lots can't get a good angle. The Colossi still very helpful here. MaxPax has kept the Vikings at bay. Disruptors added into the fray. But Clem still unable to find a killing blow. The supplies are dangerously low. MaxPax. He's feigning like he has a lot more than he does. The way he plays with confidence, despite how mediocre his supply is so important. Because, of course, Clem can smell weakness. The Viking count's so damn high. The Nexus stripped of shields and now HP. The Vikings just fighting straight up. There's a disruptor with nothing behind. And MaxPax just crumbles. Clem has too much, too quickly. He shut down the early cheese. And he carried the advantage throughout the rest of it. Just too much. Well, that brings us to effectively match point. We're going back to ley lines for the final game in this second best of 3 / best of 5. Where it all started, it may all end. One way or another. These two who played each other so many hundreds of times. This is one of the greatest displays of how important every single unit can be. One more time. In the bottom left, the reigning world champion, we have Clem. Up against the best Protoss in the world. It's MaxPax. So like, subscribe, and buckle in, buckle down, and buckle up. Game 5. Probe sent out. Not going to be a MaxPax. Honestly, Clem seemed very well suited to dealing with it. He scouted it, responded immediately. It did less than nothing. I say less than nothing because he built Zealots, he delayed his expansion. That's too much. Probe, SCV, bit of a chase. The probe looking for the gases, making sure there's no second barracks around. He's not sneaking the factory. Coming back in, actually misses the SCV, but he knows the Reaper or Marine is coming out, so doesn't want to take a chance on it. Factory's on the way. And will MaxPax deviate for the first time in this series from the Twilight Council? Well, he head for the Stargate, which is really the only other option. Robo is just kind of giving up map control entirely. No, the Twilight Council is warped in yet again. A bunker for Clem early on, indicating He has no interest in super early aggression, but instead, just gonna sit back and let MaxPax come to him. Well, not exactly sit back. He's waiting for his opportunity to snipe the Adept, but about as close as we get to passive with these two. Factory completed. Starport slapped down alongside. The bulwark already coming together against the inevitable Blink Stalkers. He lets in one. Might have enough to kill the Hellion. Giving Clem the benefit of the doubt and thinking he'll pull it back in time, which he likely will. He actually gets one of them killed. The other Adept is hanging out in the mineral line. Nothing to kill there. Chasing down the Hellion, but shades away. Bit of an awkward exchange. Robotics facility no longer being built at the front, noticeably. Starport nearly completed. Already a siege tank in production for Clem. And a tech lab. Not even bothering with the medevac early. Likely a Raven to start. So much utility. Reaper gets taken out, but spots where the Stalkers are heading across the map. Scouting Hellion, angling to spot the third base. Sled probe pulls it out of its ethereal backpack. The Hellion actually takes it out, which seems mostly just spiteful, but I can respect that. No one gets away with putting down a third Nexus directly in front of me as I'm moments away from dying. It lives to tell the tale. Which is a weird line to draw, but everyone has their triggers. Bulwark almost completed. Stim on the way, another barracks. The Blink Stalkers warped in at the front. And we just go for it. No, the siege tank behind, too much to contend with. Stalkers drawn into the prism. There's just the tank she can get right on top of. And he juggles forward with the warp prism. What a play. And Clem targeted his own starport. He hurt himself in his own confusion. And while he's mitigating it pretty well here, I think MaxPax able to get a surprising amount of damage done with the very smooth juggling of the Stalkers onto the siege tank. So, keeping map control. The Raven is spotted. It spots the Observer, which neither of them can really do anything about it. Meanwhile, just threatening the probes. Single Stalker comes down to make sure it knows it's not appreciated around these parts. Observer taken down. The little micro battles between these two can escalate quickly, but that Observer, the most important part of this, and without it, it's going to be very difficult unless he's willing to blindly commit to blinking forward, which with a second siege tank here could be a disaster. In fact, chasing this down, he canceled the warping on the Stalker. Did he want another warping back at home? It appears so. And for the first time in 5 games, a Templar Archives is built at all. We've seen the Dark Templar, and so is Clem for the most part, except during very key times. But potentially Storm, or even just a High Templar for feedback on the Raven, could catch Clem completely off guard after over an hour of battling it out. I don't even know if High Templar or something Clem's thinking about at this stage, as MaxPax has sometimes gone weeks without building any of them. Not finding them. They're just so expensive, and a player like Clem doesn't even necessarily need EMPs to negate the storms. Just basic micro is sometimes good enough. But here we go. Psionic Storm is being researched in possibly the most safe location in all of MaxPax's base. The first storms are going to be absolutely critical. He desperately needs them. Is there a... Well, there is a warp prism. Is he heading back across the map with it yet? Yes, coming back to pick up the chauffeur, the High Templar, in their exquisite prism in order to bring destruction down upon the Terrans. No speed prism, unfortunately, but Clem just sitting back, building up. It's worked for him so far. Not surprised to see it again. Very key. Doesn't even have a Ghost Academy on the way. So clearly anticipating that Colossus-based play. Already adding Vikings, as well as plenty of Marauders. He's getting an armory. He's getting an engineering bay. But what he's not getting Ghosts. He has no idea. There's an Archon on the way. But still, nothing spotted yet. No direct counter to the High Templar with Storm. Besides a good spread and great micro. Well, here he goes. The Templar will be dropped out. The Storms will be laid down, but... Well, most of the army had already engaged well before the Storms came in. The Zealots actually get into the mineral line, but overall, a swing and a miss from MaxPax. He ends up losing the majority of his army well before the High Templar can even participate. The Raven is taken down. Archons are always a solid threat, but there's no more energy. Finally finds a High Templar with energy, just wades through it, and Clem will heal up. MaxPax plummets to 50 supply down, despite Clem just weathering the storms. Storm doesn't have enough damage to outright kill Marauders. And now it feels like MaxPax has said, you see, I knew this was a terrible idea. He's building a robotics bay. He has to rely on the High Templar, but it did not go well. MaxPax killed 18 Marines. Clem killed almost as many Terran units as MaxPax did in that fight. Dozens of charge lots died. And of course, when you storm on top of the army, the charge lots are likely to be in the midst of it as well. The only upside here is how quickly the medevacs are drained of energy, but most of those units back at full HP. MaxPax able to refill quickly. He has a very good economy back at home, so that's the saving grace here. But the storms, he's just already phased them out almost entirely. He has the few Templar he built while building the Rubble Bay, but now he's shifting into Colossi. We'll see if it's too little or too late. The tanks will target the Templar, taking several out as the Terran tenacity is tactically tenuous, but terribly effective. So close. And the ghosts are out. Colossi added into the field, but I can't help but feel MaxPax has thrown away any opportunity to regain the initiative. Just as I say it, the charge lots are warped into the main. The SCVs, on what little resources are left, are forced to retreat entirely. Meanwhile, the main army heading down the center. The Templar will ward away with a storm, but the siege tanks still zoning incredibly well. Another storm softens up some of the army. Colossi on the field. Meanwhile, more charge lots taken out. MaxPax keeps trying to find an angle, but Clem is so acutely aware of it. And now the storms are absolutely devastating. Clem wades through them yet again. He has 2-2 against just 2-1. The medevac's still enough. MaxPax trying to leverage an economic advantage, but it isn't really materializing. So far, he's lost 5,000 more resources, 78 charge lots to 49 bio units in total. The Colossi are on the field, but he doesn't have extended thermal lance, such a key upgrade to be missing. Having less range to deal with Vikings and Marauders is clearly a mistake. And while Storm might be the historical and in-game counter to Vikings, the Colossi just keep trundling through the main army. The pathfinding is questionable at best, as the Colossi clearly rallied out to the middle of the map where Clem has already claimed it. And MaxPax just getting shut down at every turn. Clem is letting, when your enemy's making a mistake, don't interrupt him. So Clem just letting MaxPax attack into a superior army multiple times. And now, well, Clem's maxed out. The storms will soften things up. The medevac's still almost entirely drained of energy. Not surprising, as the bio army softened up. More Colossi on the way. That lack of thermal lance is a critical mistake. He desperately needs it. He has the money. Should have been done already. He's still going to have a big charge log counter, but MaxPax may lose 2 Nexi before he's able to set up his defenses, and a bunch of probes alongside one of them. Not that he doesn't have the probes. He has plenty here. The charge lots easily cut off. EMP, but another army going to get jumped by the Stalkers and the Colossi. Going for the siege tanks. There is 1 Templar. A good storm to help out. The Colossi getting outflanked for now, but using the Warp Prism to juggle them back, and MaxPax turns it around. Beautiful micro with the Warp Prism combined with the Blink Stalkers, and he removes Clem's position. He removes the tanks, but we have to ask ourselves, at what cost? Clem now has 4 bases. He's working on a 5th command center. MaxPax still has 4, but he lost 2 Nexi. He kept his probe count intact, which is an absolutely critical part of this. He's going to have the economy. He's got 12 gates and double rubbo. He gets extended thermal lance. He realizes, but is it too little and possibly too late? He's got to be so careful with the Colossi going down the cliffs, which is supposedly helpful, but most of the time it gets them into places they can't get out of very easily. The Warp Prism is headed for the main. Clem is still maxed out. He's working on 3-3. So MaxPax has bought himself some space, but he's still in clearly a tough position as the Warp Prism just gets annihilated by a disproportionate response of Vikings. There's a Venn diagram of sensor towers on the minimap covering that entire area. A fusion core is on the way for Clem. MaxPax about as close to maxed as he can pax for. Vikings coming around the corner. 3-3, plus 3 weapons just completed for Clem. Still a few seconds for MaxPax. More storms. 1 Templar taken out. The Terran army is doing so much damage. EMPs from the left flank. Vikings over the top. And Marines and Marauders. And that is just too much. Clem turns it all around, and he takes it with 3 games to 2. What a series. It feels like MaxPax kind of ran out of steam near the end. Trying Storm, and while a good idea, just kind of flubbed the attack, and Clem stood his ground and just stayed patient. He never in any of the games really got drawn into that desperate fight that ends up going poorly. Game 1, sure, it was a very dicey scenario, but it felt like MaxPax just had the edge there that he didn't maintain towards the very end, and Clem proving once again why he's the world champion. So, well, certainly, Jimmy, what happened? What do you mean we have to pay extra for fonts? That's not true. They're just words. How much they... Anyways, well, thank you for watching. I hope I made your day a little bit better. Thank you to the Monday night Weeklies for putting on such great tournaments as well. And if you got the means and motivation, it'd be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. And thank you to our Mule Tier patrons for bringing in all the minerals. Big Jiggy Dork, Mario in. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free. At least for now. So, thank you for watching. I hope I made your day just a little bit better. Congratulations once again to Clem. Good luck, have fun. I'll see you next time. Stay chill.